And we are on. So this is Dean with the Two Party Podcast. I'm on here with Jeremy Bennett, and he's joining us today. We're just gonna basically pick his mind and see how he is, who he is, and some of the things that he's into and interested in. He wants to share with the audience. So Jeremy, go ahead and tell us a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. Yeah, it's great to be here, Dean. I really appreciate you having me. My name is Jeremy Bennett. Basically what I do, I travel throughout the country, Canada, where I'm from, and United States, some places in the UK. And I do presentations on basically showing people how to calm their minds, react more calmly to challenging situations, and live more in the present moment. And, God knows we need that more now than ever.
Amen. Our world's a mess.
We're living in such incredibly uncertain times. And, to be able to share this message means the world to me, because for years, I was, one of the people who had a very difficult time calming their minds. I was dealing with a lot of stress, a lot of anxiety. I'm sure we'll get into that in a little while, but it was tough. It was difficult. And nowadays I've used my journey to help other people, show them practical techniques and practical methods to help them calm their mind, react more calmly to challenging situations, and live more in the, for lack of a better word, peace and bliss of the present moment. So that's a little bit about who I am and what I do.
It's extremely, it's funny you say that, and wrapping up that intro statement, it is so difficult for people to live in the moment. It is so hard for people to not live in the past or be focused on the future, things that should happen or could happen, versus literally just absorbing where you're at and what right at the moment, right in the moment. It's so difficult for people to get there.
Absolutely. And if you look at it, the average person has thousands of thoughts every single day.
Mm-hmm.
That's not every month or every year. Every single day, the average person has.
I think I do it every minute.
And, if you look at it, it wouldn't be so bad if it was, good thoughts.
Right.
Thinking about good things, or, thinking about things that could potentially happen in the future that would benefit us. But the reality is, not every single one, but the reality is a lot of these thoughts are not only the same thoughts we had yesterday, but they're dwelling on something bad in the past. So something negative, something we didn't want to happen, that happened. So we're dwelling on that, or we're fearing something that could potentially happen, tomorrow, or in 10 minutes from now, or in, 100 years from now. And that's where, including myself, I've been doing this 15 years. I'm far from perfect when it comes to this realm of things. But, that's where the majority of people, or I should say a lot of people, spend their time dwelling on something bad or fearing something that could potentially happen tomorrow. And, when we spend the majority of our time in our mind like that, not so good things can happen.
Mm-hmm. Correct. I would agree. And I've looked a little bit about your story. I've read a little bit, just what I could dig up online in some of the places I could find you in social media and stuff. And one of the things that caught my eye was about OCD. And I always, I guess you could say for many years growing up, and I'm 44, but growing up, there was a time period between like the late 80s and the early 90s where OCD, the word, became like this household name, and there was always a reason why. The reason I do it is because I have OCD, or it just became one of those things, kind of like almost like attention deficit disorder, just became a thing all of a sudden, and so. Tell me a little bit about your experience with OCD. Tell me a little bit about your experience growing up and where that all ties in.
Dean, I can remember, and this is something I talk about in my live presentations. I can remember, believe it or not, my very first symptom of OCD. It was grade 7, so I was 11, 12 years old. I think I was around 12 at the time. And I was playing ball hockey with the boys, from Canada. Love our hockey here.
I love it. Yeah. It's like the only sport I keep up with. Fighting sports and hockey is all I care about. That's it. I don't watch Men in Tights football. I don't watch any of that stuff.
I still play a little bit of ball hockey. I don't play ice hockey because
right.
I messed up my knee years ago, but a little bit of ball hockey once or twice a week. But it was grade 7, 12 years old, played ball hockey with the boys, came home that night, and I couldn't get to sleep. And the reason why is because one of my dresser drawers was sticking out, maybe an inch or 2 or 3
Mm-hmm.
inches more than the rest. Never before.
Wasn't a problem.
Before has that ever, bothered me. And you know what? It wasn't anxiety or anything at the time. It was just like, why is this bothering me?
Mm-hmm.
Why can't I get to sleep? And eventually it was pestering enough to the point where I stood up and I walked over and I pushed in the drawer, and it was relaxing. It kind of went away, that irritation. Didn't think anything of it, went to sleep, went to school, came back the next night, the same thing happened again. Dresser drawer was sticking out, just one of them, maybe not the same one, but one of them. Couldn't get to sleep. And I'm like, why is this happening? And it was pestering enough to the point, like the night before, I got up, walked over, pushed it in like magic. That feeling went away. As the weeks went on, especially in school, as the weeks went on, I started to do these things I didn't understand. Now, keep in mind, OCD, like I was 12 years old. We didn't have the internet. We didn't have dial-up, I don't think, at that time. We definitely didn't in my house. We didn't have a clue what OCD was. We barely knew what anxiety was. Right. So as the weeks and months went on, I started to catch myself doing these weird, things. I started to walk over lines with my left foot first, just, automatically. And if I didn't do that, I'd feel off. I didn't feel good. I started to put things on a 30-degree angle. I started to count a lot of things. And I can't stress enough, I didn't have a clue what was going on.
Right.
I did not know what OCD was. I didn't know what anxiety was. And as the months went on, the years went on, it became worse and worse and worse and worse, to the point where I was actually in Ontario for a couple of months, babysitting my nephew. I was, if I had to guess, maybe 15, 16 years old at the time. And it was very, very bad at that time. It was, consuming hours of my day. And I still, didn't know what OCD was. And that particular summer, I lost almost 40 pounds in 2 months. And I came home back to Newfoundland. And a lot of people thought I was extremely sick, which I guess I was, but not in the way they thought I was.
Right.
Didn't know what OCD was at that time. And it was grade 12. My friend gave me a magazine. And in that magazine was a story, a girl's story who, was doing all the same things I was doing. And I'm telling you, Dean, when I read that, and I read that she was tapping on things, and she was,
that's me.
I'm like, dear God, are you serious? And you hear the expression, I thought I was dreaming. I swear to you, I thought I was dreaming, because at that point, I was like 5-6 years in. It was consuming my day, like hours a day.
And it was different at that time. It was different things with you. It wasn't just the drawer. Now it had become new habits that became progressive.
I couldn't even talk without repeating myself. If I asked you if you were here in my presence, I said, Dean, how you doing today? I'd say, Dean, how you doing? 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 Until my body felt right.
Until you got that peace.
Yep. Exactly. And it was everything. It was repetition of everything. It was checking the toaster, the oven, the door. It was walking back and forth over lines. It was, every time I'd say a sentence, I'd have to repeat it over and over again. So when I heard her story, I almost had to pinch myself because I didn't know that this was like 99, 98, 99. Yeah. I didn't know there was somebody else
with the same situation.
It was wild. It was wild. And then she eventually went on to say that she was diagnosed with something called Obsessive Compulsive Disorder. And I'm like, oh my God. I was like, well, maybe that's what I have. And we didn't have Google at the time. Maybe at that time we probably got the internet that year, and it
still wasn't that great yet.
Yeah, exactly. And so I started Googling these symptoms, which I don't recommend.
Right, right. You end up on all kinds of wild tangents, right?
Exactly. The average person, and I'm the average person, we're not meant for that stuff. Leave that to the professionals. So eventually I did go to the doctor, which was a very, very tough decision, which was by far one of the best decisions I've ever made. And in all my presentations, I tell people, if you're suffering with anxiety or even overwhelming stress or whatever it is, go see a professional. Yeah. That could be one of the
Stay away from Google.
Yeah, 100%. So I did eventually get diagnosed with a very severe form of obsessive compulsive disorder. And nowadays, I did what was recommended, and it was a journey. And nowadays you almost have to reverse you're almost relearning and reversing the things that you've done over the course of so long, right? Exactly. And what I eventually started doing, once I started to break free of that, which is, it's very, very difficult. It's not
I was going
easy.
to say, it must have been very painful for you
It was
to
several
try to fight these things.
Exactly. And it was a lot of exposure techniques. That's what did it for me,
Mm-hmm.
under the recommendation of the professionals I was seeing. But after that, what was unique is that after I put that, what I call that monster behind me, I started to realize that there were so many other things that I still suffered with that was not related to OCD, but was related to stress and anxiety.
Mm-hmm.
Things like, taking things personally was big for me. If somebody didn't like me, if somebody didn't like my accent, where I grew up, my friends, my family, whatever it was, that would kill me.
You
That would
dwell on it.
absolutely kill me.
Yeah.
And I hated it. I'd dwell on it, and it'd keep me up at night. And so little things like that, or not being able to relax before bedtime, or, constantly dwelling on something I didn't want to happen that happened, or constantly fearing something that happened, or that I didn't want to happen. All these little things, and, needless arguments. So I said to myself, you know what? Once I started to put the OCD behind me, which was definitely a process, I said, maybe I can start to tackle those kind of issues. And then I went on another journey. And then I became, a student of the mind. I started to read every single self-help book I could possibly get my hands on. I ended up getting a degree in psychology, just to understand the basics. The very, very basics.
And I think that's important. I mean, you kind of almost, for people that have these disorders, I think you almost have to learn these things. It's almost like if you don't really understand the basics or the fundamentals of it.
Yeah, exactly. So I did that. I went to St. Francis Xavier University in Nova Scotia, and for 4 years got a degree there. And then I just became this, this student of the mind, and being, wanting to study, how do people calm their minds? One thing that really caught me off guard is that you see these people who, for instance, just off the top of my head, if they get into a car accident and they become paralyzed, and you look at them, and, a month or 2 or 3 down the road, they're still smiling. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at whatever my issue was at the time, some petty issue. And I'm like, they're smiling. And I'm like, I'm living this in my head of whatever it was, whatever the issue was. Yeah. And I'm like, how did they get to that place? Right. How did they get to that place? And then it was, in terms of being happy, even though they're faced with, this gigantic, troublesome issue. And so I just started to research. And I was introduced to the World Organization of Natural Medicine, and I studied under them. And my brother's a doctor, so he helped me out. And, it was just this big whirlwind of all kinds of different sources. And so that's what I do now. So I don't help people with the OCD side, but I help people with calming their minds, and react more calmly to challenging or uncertain situations. And basically I show them how to live in that peace and bliss of the present moment.
I think it's what the latter portion of what you're saying. It's truly amazing. And I can personally attest to this. It's truly amazing what our thoughts can truly do to us and can truly do for us. And I mean that in the aspect of, and I used to call it, I've been through counseling and stuff myself, and what we would term stinking thinking. And you literally think about, like, sometimes you can really think negative stuff and be stuck in a hole or depressed or just really in a low point in your life. And then sometimes I can even reflect on my own life and look back at times where I was in a low point. And then I can look at where I'm at nowadays, even though things aren't exactly perfect. I think better. I think more, not so much I think successfully, but I think more, I look at both sides of the good and the bad, or the positive negatives of everything nowadays. I guess I analyze a little better. But it's interesting how our thoughts can truly just destroy us, or they can truly set us up for success. In every moment, not just in future or past, but they can literally help us in, like we discussed earlier, in the moment that we're in, succeed. What is something like as far as you, what's one of the, like, how could you, I guess, bring out the thoughts, like what's like one of the most powerful things you can say about, like, human thought and mind with what you've studied?
One of the biggest, certainly wasn't my discovery, but one of the biggest things I've come to learn along the way is that certain parts of the brain, your brain, my brain, all of our brains, certain parts of the brain has a very difficult time distinguishing between something real, in reality, something that's legitimately, genuinely happening, and a mere thought. So I'll give you an example. Like in all my presentations and my books, I love to give a lot of examples because people can relate to it.
Yep.
So let's say, for instance, if somebody very close to you, say, let's say your child or a friend or whoever it may be, that person can be literally 2 feet in front of you, completely safe, watching TV. You know they're safe. 100% you are convinced they are safe, which they are. If you think about them, you don't even have to close your eyes, but if you think about them getting into a very bad car accident and you really kind of dwell on that thought, even though you know they're safe, consciously you're looking at them, you know they're safe. If you dwell on that thought, them getting into a car accident, chances are you're going to feel that somehow. You're probably going to feel a lump in the pit of your stomach. You're probably maybe even sweat a little.
It's impactful.
Exactly. And the reality is that that's happened. You know, your heartbeat is going to raise a little bit. Why that's happening is that because, like I said, the brain has a very difficult time distinguishing between something real and a thought, at least certain parts of the brain, So when we look at that and we look at, I ask people all the time, where do we spend our time in our heads?
I'm a thinker. I'm a thinker. I spend all my time up here. Even my wife tells me I don't even hear her half the time.
and that's the thing, we're all guilty of that. We spend so much time dwelling on bad stuff or fearing bad stuff. So if the brain, it doesn't have to be happening right now for the body to feel a reaction. So like we talked about just now, if the thoughts that we're thinking were good thoughts, it wouldn't be so bad. But usually it's not. It's dwelling on a bad day we had yesterday, or fearing what could, potentially happen next week. If, the world is going to come to an end, or it's going to be a hurricane, or it's, I can't pay the mortgage, or whatever that may be. So it wouldn't be so bad if it was good thoughts, but the reality is usually it's not. And if the brain, certain parts of the brain has a very difficult time distinguishing between what's real and thoughts, and we're having thousands of thoughts every day, what is that going to do to our health? If we're constantly in that, what's called a fight or flight response, when, for the most part, we should only be in that fight or flight response when we're in some kind of danger. If we're sitting down in front of Facebook or Twitter and we're thinking all these bad things or fearing these bad things, we're not in any danger. But the body says, oh my God, whatever you're thinking about is happening right now. And, that's where a lot of people, including myself, nobody's perfect. A lot of people spend their time in that headspace. And that's what I help people break that cycle, to get out of that headspace and to experience the present moment.
Yeah. And I'm one of those, like, I'm a deep, and I'm not, I guess not to brag, but I'm a very intellectual type person. I have to read stuff. I have to have knowledge. I have to have facts. I can't take things for face value sometimes. So I'm a deep thinker and stuff, and that's how I've always been. And so I'm exactly what you just explained. Sometimes I'm looking at, like, how is this meeting going to go next week? How is this going to, I do construction, I'm a general contractor. How is this project going to go? And I look at all the good, the bad, the ugly. Is the house going to cave in? What's going to go on? And it's sometimes it's healthy thought of healthy processing, and some of it obviously is not healthy. It's just not good. Yeah.
And it's so true. And, like I said, we're all guilty of that. We spend so much time in the head. And when we're living in our heads so often, and you probably know the subject very well, the more and more we think about something, whether it's a good thought or a bad thought, we have a place in our brain that literally is going to train our eyes to focus on more of those things that kind of meet that energy. For instance, if you buy a new car, when second you buy a new car, what happens? You start to see that car everywhere. Everywhere you go, it's on the freeway, it's on the highways and people's parking lots and driveways. And you're like, does everybody own this car? You're like, I didn't notice these cars before. And the reality is, you saw the cars, you just didn't register them. You didn't notice them, because the second you buy a car, you're constantly thinking about it.
Right.
Constantly.
Yep.
So you have a place in your brain called your reticular activating system, which trains your eyes to focus on things that you're concentrating on. So, that's why positive people are attracted to positive people. Negative people are attracted to negative people. People who gossip are attracted to other people who gossip. People who like sports are attracted to other people who like sports. I say this all the time. The people who complain the most are usually the people who actually have the most to complain about, because that's not coincidental. If we are constantly complaining and thinking about that negativity, we're training our eyes to see opportunities that reinforce that. And we can only act upon those opportunities that we're aware of. So if we're constantly thinking all these bad things, we're going to literally be attracted to the bad things. And, you know, we're all guilty of it. You know, vice versa. If we're constantly thinking positive things, we're going to be attracted to and notice and register more positive people and positive things. It's just the way the human body works.
And you bring up in one of the emails that you had sent me, and I want to bring this up to the audience. You bring up a really good thing, that's what I keep catching my eye. If you notice me looking over, there's a misunderstanding that situations cause us to feel certain ways. And you say, but that's not quite the case, is it? You ask that question. Tell me a little bit about that, because that's an interesting statement in itself.
That's something I suffered with for so many years of my life. So we look at it, a lot of the time, a lot of people believe that a particular situation can basically cause somebody to feel a certain way. But the reality is this, it's not so much the situation, it's your reaction to the situation. So I know that sounds easy and it sounds simple, but you know, in order to really, really grasp it, it takes a little bit of digging. So what I mean is this, you know, if situations caused, let's say stress, for instance, everybody would react to the same situation in the same exact way.
You would,
you could love roller coasters, and I hate them, which I do. I don't like roller coasters. So if it was the situation that caused the stress, you would love roller coasters, I would have to love it, right?
Right.
It's the same situation, but it's two different psychological reactions. You could absolutely, I'll give you another example. Let's say my best friend. I love my best friend. My best friend may have done something to you 10 years ago. You hate that person, right? So it's the same. If he walks in and we're, you know, chatting right now, I feel warmth and love towards that person. You feel hatred, right? It's the same situation. We're exposed to the same thing, but it's two different psychological reactions. So what we need to understand is that it's not so much the situation, but it's more so our individual perception of it, our individual reaction to it. So in other words, we don't always have to change the situation. Now, sometimes it's good. Sometimes we want to, sometimes we need to, but we don't always have to change the situation. We just need to change how we react to it. Right. And that makes all the difference in the world.
It does. And that's a good point. I know several of my friends and even family, you know, and like I said, I've been through counseling most all of my life. I had a pretty crazy childhood. My mom was blessed as a single mother to be able to get us into counseling. I thank her for that. And then even when I got older, even in my 20s, I went through a lot of counseling. So I feel like, although I'm not a professional and I'm not good sometimes, I feel like I've got better coping skills than a lot of people ever got. And so a lot of my friends come to me for advice and stuff because they know I'm a little more, I guess, better at giving the advice and telling them how to cope. And sometimes in my life I don't, but I try to give them that advice. And one of the things I always say is exactly what you just said is how you react to the things that you're presented it's going to change your whole world. And I've told a lot of my friends, like, you can sit there and get mad. Somebody can flip you off, cuss you out, and you can get extremely pissed off and mad about it. And I've even done it, literally laughed at it. Just haha, whatever, don't even worry me or care in the world that you're flipping me off, you know? And people are like, how in the world are you reacting to that response that way? And I've literally just learned that for one, I'm at a point in my life at 44 years old. I've lived through so much hell as a young man and a child, and the things I remember growing up, very dysfunctional childhood. Where I'm at now, I want to be happy in life. I've decided that probably in my mid 30s, I finally decided, I guess I started to reach that plateau where I guess adulting comes in. And I decided, what is my goal as being an adult? I want to be happy. So I stopped reacting to things that come at me that maybe most people in an immediate emotional response may react in an immediate emotional response way. I see it and I stop even in that moment, in that very second. And I just, is that how I want to react? Is that how I want to retain the information that I'm reacting to? And I'm one that I catch that a lot. And so what I'm hearing you say is exactly, it's almost like stuff I've already been kind of working on. So it makes me think I'm almost on the right track, if that makes any sense. Like maybe I'm going in the right direction, or maybe it's just me and you are just going the wrong direction and everyone else is doing it right, right? But I find that interesting because on a personal level, there was many years, like you discussed, there was many years where I used to take things personally. I have friends right now that are probably listening to this show right now. I have friends that they used to hate me. They wouldn't invite me to parties because I was the kid that would get rowdy at a party, show up, and I'd steal the damn keg from the party and beat someone up on my way out leaving. And so I was that jerk. And so there was many years where I was just a jerk. I was just a complete jerk. But at the same time, even when I wasn't a jerk, sometimes my reactions for being a jerk was because of how I felt someone felt about me personally, or how I perceived or took it. And come to find out later, after a few years down the road, me and that same person, come to find out they liked me the whole time. It was my own perception. So I mean, I just see like where this all ties in as a personal connection, as well, like how we perceive things personally on a personal level.
Absolutely. And if you look at it, I mean, so many people, and I always stress this, even though I've been talking about this for almost 15 years, nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the times we take so many things personally that we shouldn't. And I'll give you an example. If somebody doesn't like you or me or whoever it is, if somebody doesn't like you for your accent or where you come from or what kind of clothes you wear or your sexuality or, how you grow up, whatever it may be, your family, your friends, whatever it is, something that somebody should not have a problem with. It's very easy to take it personally. And one thing I teach in my books and my seminars is that there is this technique that, it sounds simple, but it takes time and practice and dedication. What we need to understand in order to get to a place, if somebody doesn't like us for no good reason, to get to a place where we stop taking that personally, what we need to understand is why people behave and think the way they think. So picture this. If somebody has a problem with you, what we need to understand is that the vast majority of the time, and I'm not going to shout out a number because I don't know the particular number, but the vast majority of the time, we all kind of act on autopilot. It's and what shaped us throughout our entire lifetime, what we read, what we were exposed to, our friends or family, whoever we listened to, whoever had that authority over us, every single little last experience, the thousands or maybe even the millions, every little last experience we've ever experienced shaped us into who we are today. So when somebody got a problem with you, for no reason, what we need to understand is, why are they thinking that? Why are they judging? Why are they ridiculing? And the reality is we're never going to understand every single little last experience they've went through. So we got to, get that out of the door. That's not going to happen. We're not going to get inside their head. But what we need to understand is that those experiences helped shape their beliefs and shaped their values. So the reality is this: when somebody got a problem with you, a lot of people may look at the person and say, why do they have to think, why do they have to do that? Why do they have to behave like that? And the reality is they simply can't snap their fingers and stop judging or stop ridiculing or stop hating. And the example I give people to show them that, is a lot harder than they think. I look at them and I ask them, I say, well, think about your favorite food right now. And they, it's pizza or ice cream or whatever it is. And I say, okay, hate that food. Just absolutely hate it. And they're like, well, I can't because I love it. And then I say, exactly. Well, that person who's judging you or hating you or ridiculing you or whatever it is, they can't snap their fingers and stop that craving, stop that urge, stop that desire, because everything they've ever been exposed to is shaping how they're reacting to you right now. Just like you can't hate your favorite food or love a food you hate, they can't snap their fingers and just stop that cycle. Is a lot harder. So what we need to realize is that when people don't like somebody for no good reason, it's a projection. And I know we hear that word all the time, but it's a projection of how they're feeling. Now, if I did something to somebody and they hate me, different story.
Right.
But if somebody's just hating you or doesn't like where you come from or your accent or something meaningless, something somebody should not have an issue with, it's really a projection of how they feel, because a peaceful mind wouldn't ridicule or judge or hate for no reason. Right. So that's what we got to understand. People, all of us, we're all for the most part acting on autopilot, shaped by the thousands of things we've experienced over the years. So when we realize that, and I say it all the time, not so much in our head, but kind of down in our heart. When it becomes second nature, then we can look at those people and say, you know what? it's nothing to do with me. It's
Right.
nothing to do with me. If you got a problem with me for no reason, it's nothing to do with me. And I'm not saying, you know, tell them that, but just to know it,
Yep.
And it can really make a big difference. And I've known people who started to use that. And I'm telling you, it absolutely changed their lives, especially in the days of social media, because
Right.
all it takes is seconds is to open up
Oh
Facebook
yeah.
Twitter, and see this polarizing comment that is so outlandish to the viewer,
Mm-hmm.
the one reading it. It's like, how could they think that to me? It's crazy, and it drives them crazy, right? But
Yep.
if we realize that, you know, we didn't live the life that they're living, we didn't have all those experiences, we didn't hang around who they hung around, and the reality is, when we're judging that comment, the person judging the comment could be wrong. I could be
Right.
completely wrong when I read something and say, that's driving me crazy. How dare they? You know, we don't know who's right or wrong a lot of the times. So when we realize that usually it is a projection of that person, you know, we can stop taking it personally. And it's a process. It doesn't happen overnight, but it's certainly a process.
For sure. So basically environmental. I mean, what you're describing here sounds to me like completely environmental. Our upbringing, our everything we've been exposed to, like you said, is really just an environmental thing has created these, I guess, these false pretenses, and that the projection basically is, basically, like you said, they're projecting kind of an emotion that maybe they don't know how to express. Even does that make sense, or am I off?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say it's totally 100% environmental, but a lot of the time it is. It's basically what has shaped them over the years. You
Mm-hmm.
look at, I'll give you an example. You know, we're living in a time right now where, you know, politics, it's never been
Everywhere.
polarizing, right?
Everywhere. Yeah.
Exactly. So how can somebody turn on the news and love a particular politician, somebody turn on the same news and absolutely, you know, almost
Mm-hmm.
throw up to see a
Right.
particular politician, no matter what country the politician is in? But if you look at it, you know, that politician may represent everything that the viewer absolutely hates. But for the
Right.
other person who loves that politician, he or she probably came up with some kind of grant or different tax or
The
something that
different
helped their business,
ideals.
helped their family survive.
Right.
So that person's going to look at that politician and only tend to remember all the good
The
things they did,
good.
right?
Yeah.
And the person who hates that politician it's no matter what word comes out of their mouth, it's going to drive them crazy,
Yep.
because they can only associate bad with them. So, but when we get to a place where, and I mean, we could avoid so many needless arguments in life if we understand that, you know, it's not always right or wrong. It's who's doing the perceiving.
Right.
And, you know, I get into conversations about politics, not a lot,
Right.
but
I try to avoid it, and the name of the show, a lot of guests or a lot of people I reach out to are like, well, I don't really want to be on a political show, and I'm like, two parties, just two people talking. That's it. And then once they hear that, they're like, oh yeah, I'll be on there. But
exactly.
and I do news headlines. I do a little bit of politics, but I for the most part, I'm one of those people that's completely sick of it. I'm tired of hearing about it. I pray our elections get over with sooner than later, even though I know it's November 3rd, but it's like, I'm so tired of hearing about politics. I'm tired of turning the news on and not getting a good feel good story, something
Yeah.
positive. You don't even hear those anymore. You
Yeah.
know, it's sad.
Yeah. And I mean, news is just full of negativity.
Negative. And
It's
so
just,
that's another reason I try to turn it off, because I'm like, I don't want that coming into my head. I don't want to hear
exactly.
that mind garbage.
Yeah. So that's like a conversation I try to avoid at all costs. But there's some, talking about politics, but there's sometimes, you know, I'll get into an engaging conversation about politics, but I'll end it as soon as I feel that the vibe is going to be, you're wrong, you're right, I'm right, you're wrong. And it's like, you know, like,
because
then
there's no progression there. There's no good conversation to be had. It's not productive.
Exactly.
It's not getting anywhere. Yeah.
What's the point? And those conversations, they don't happen anymore because people know I usually don't talk about it. So I just talk about something.
It's one of those. And there's also, you know, there's people, I mean, I have tons of friends. I you know, on my personal Facebook page, I don't discuss politics. I don't discuss anything. If you look at my personal Facebook page, a lot of people have probably unfriended me now. I post all music because I love music. It brings peace to me. So I post a lot of music, new, old, weird. People probably think I'm just crazy because it's like one day it's country, one day it's rap. Who knows? It's just the mood I'm in. But I don't post anything about politics. I don't post news articles. I don't post these things on my personal page because I have a lot of people that I care about that A, I don't want to argue. B, I value relationships and I don't want to break relationships over a misunderstanding. Yeah. And I have private groups on Facebook and other areas that if I want to go talk politics or finances or things that you're not typically supposed to talk about, there's groups for that. And there's also, I have friends that I know that have very thick skin. And if I really am in a mood, I can always call one of them and we can just cuss each other out all we want. You know, it's
Exactly.
just one of those things with, if I want to go down that road, I can, but it's like self-induced torture. Why do it?
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I got people in my family and some cousins and aunts and uncles, like they don't talk to each other because of that. Like they just disagree with this and now they're not talking. And I'm like, what? Really?
Life's
like,
too short. Life's too short.
It's wild.
You talk about meditation. And this is interesting because I had a conversation with one of our guests last week about meditation and what he does for meditation.
Mm-hmm.
I spoke with another guest the week before who actually brought up meditation again and what he does for meditation and his format of meditation. What is your take on meditation and what do you consider meditation?
Meditation to me, like we talked about earlier, the average person thinks thousands of thoughts every single day. So, you know, the mind should be used for the most part, kind of like a muscle. So if you go to the gym, you do a bicep curl, you do mm-hmm. 1, you do 2, you do 3, and you kind of can't lift up the weight for the 4th time. What do? You put it down, you take a rest. Mm-hmm. You know, a minute later, you can pick it up once, you can pick it up twice again. So when the mind needs to be considered and looked at like a muscle, it needs a rest periodically, not 24 hours a day, but it does need a rest to work the way it's supposed to work. So like the average person, like we said, they're thinking thousands of thoughts. They're always lost inside of their mind. So when that happens, I mean, we're going to feel drained, especially if it's bad thoughts, especially if it's negative, dwelling on bad things or fearing bad things. So meditation to me, it's basically just giving the mind a rest. And that's, people call it presence. People call it mindfulness. People call it living in the present moment or in the now or whatever they want to call it. It's just basically being totally absorbed in what's going on right now. Like if we're totally absorbed in each other right now, mm-hmm. we're meditating. Right? We don't have to sit down in the lotus position with our palms facing towards the stars to meditate. And this, mm-hmm. That's great. A lot of people do that. Every now and then I do it. Not often, right. But every now and then.
That's why I brought that up, because that was one of the discussions we had. Is one guy said he sits in a quiet room and he kind of does some like yoga type meditation.
Yeah.
The other guy literally just, he goes, finds a quiet room. Maybe he'll turn on some music. Maybe he won't, but he closes his eyes and just thinks of good things. Thinks of where he wants to be or where he wants to go.
Yep, absolutely.
So obviously different levels, everybody has a different perception of what meditation may be.
100%. I teach something called active meditation, and I'm certainly not any pro at meditation, but mm-hmm. active meditation to me is basically you can do anything and meditate at the same time. One thing I do all the time, if I'm feeling kind of overwhelmed, I'll go into my kitchen and I'll take this organic container of coconut oil, which is a very potent smell, a beautiful mm-hmm. smell. I love it. And I'll take off the top and I'll put it right under my nose and I'll smell it. And because it's so potent,
aroma.
That smell just bang anchors me.
Yeah.
And I can't think about anything but just concentrate on that smell.
Yeah.
And maybe it's only 5 seconds that I'm in that present mm-hmm. moment, but it's 5 seconds in that present moment. Mm-hmm. And it's just, my mind is just at ease. And like I said, maybe it's 5 or 10 seconds, but it's better than nothing. I say all the time, if you want to meditate, just sit in, it doesn't necessarily have to be a quiet room. Just try to hear as many sounds as you can. And maybe it is a quiet room. Well, you think it's quiet. And then maybe you start to hear a conversation out in the hallway or maybe somebody walking on the street. Concentrate all your energy on that conversation. And then once you register, that you hear people talking, mm-hmm. move on to a different sound. It could be a bug flying. And then when you hear that and you register it, move on to a different sound. And what's happening is that you're becoming so aware of what's happening right now. You're going deeper and deeper and deeper into the present moment, to the point where you're not thinking. And that's the end goal of meditation. The end goal is stop thinking, give the mind a rest. Mm-hmm. And there's so many different forms of meditation, but I love to do that active meditation. It could be, I'm looking out my window there now and I can see the ocean. Maybe it's going down to the lake or the ocean and just listening to the ducks, right? That's meditation. If you're absorbed in listening to ducks, that's meditation. But if you can hear the ducks and you're lost in yesterday or tomorrow, that's not meditation. But when you're absorbed in whatever it is, that's meditation. Is giving the mind a rest. And it's living in the present moment.
That's really a cool perspective. I never really thought about it like that. And you know, when I was younger, I used to do a little bit of meditation, I guess, and kind of like what you would consider the stereotypical, like I tried sitting in silence and, you know, but it's funny that you bring that up, because what I always ended up doing when I would try to meditate was I'd always single out a sound, and then I would be distracted by another sound, and I'd start focusing on that sound. Then I'd be distracted. And to me, I never thought that was meditation. I just thought, am I just being distracted and I'm not a person that can meditate because maybe I have ADD. What's going on? I can't keep up. But you bring a good point up that the general focus in itself, and even the change to the direction, is still a process where I'm giving my mind time to rest.
Mm-hmm. Yep, exactly.
That makes a lot of sense.
And so many people think that, you know, in order to become really good at meditation, you got to hop on a plane and go to a different country and study under a master. And, you know, that's great if somebody wants to do that. But meditation in its essence just means, you know, resting the mind, like we rest a muscle. And it's hard, especially for people who are constantly lost in their heads, like I used to be. And, you know, I'm still lost in my head a lot of the time, but not as much as before. So meditation is just taking a minute, taking a second, an hour, whatever it may be. An hour is a long time, but just living in the present moment and absorbing ourselves in that present moment. Because when we live in that present moment, even if it's for a minute or two, you know, the mind is at rest. We're not dwelling on bad. We're not fearing bad. So we're literally not in that time. We're not training our eyes to focus on bad. So, you know, and it's all connected. You know, it could help sleep. It could help relationships. It could help, you know, the ability, the momentum, the drive, the gumption to get up and go for a walk. Or, you know, the last thing we want to do when we're completely dwelling on all kinds of things is to go exercise.
Right.
You know, so there's so many different things that meditation can help with. It's amazing. But it takes that first step. And I'm not going to say it's easy, because it's not. But it's, and that's why, you know, reaching out to somebody who's really good at that would be great, no matter who that person is.
So you do seminars, you do some talking. Tell us a little bit about that. What does that look like? Do you travel around? I mean, obviously with COVID and everything, kind of how it is, it probably puts a hamper on a few things. But what are some? Tell us a little bit about what you do on that front professionally, and how you go travel around and do those.
Yeah, sure. So I wrote 3 books. The first one being The Power of the Mind, How I Beat OCD, which was all about my story. And I'll, you know, kind of tell right off the bat, it's not a book that is about solutions. It's just about what I went through, because I didn't have any solutions.
So it's your story, your testimony at the end of the day. Yep.
Exactly. The second book is called The Solution, Learn How to Truly Beat Stress and Anxiety. And the third one is called Calm Your Mind, Transform Your Life, which is about to come out. There was a short run of it, came out for a tour I was doing, but it's going to be out in stores, I'd say, within maybe 6 or 7 months. Okay. That book is kind of like the second book, but a bigger edition. So you get that book, you don't need the second.
So it kind of stacks onto the second book.
Exactly.
Okay.
So, and for the past, I'd say maybe 12, 13, 14 years, I've been traveling around the country. I've done a few documentaries, but for the most part, doing presentations. To show people how to calm their minds, to give them practical ways and tips to calm their mind. And then I created a website called the calmyourmindmethod.com. And in the calmyourmindmethod.com, I share tips and tricks and strategies just to help people experience the bliss and peace of the present moment. And on that website, I have free training. I have a blog that people can subscribe to for free. The free training, of course, is free. And so, yeah, since COVID, no live presentations, at least in person, of course. Yeah. But I do presentations online all the time. I have training online. We call it Accelerated Learning. One is coming up actually Thursday. We do one a month. It's a 4-week program. So yeah, it's I'm kept busy. I absolutely love doing what I do, as you can probably tell. Cool. Because I went through it. I walked the walk, and it was tough. So I know this sounds cliche, but as long as I can help one person, I mean, that means the world to me. So I continue to do that. I have a YouTube channel. We're almost at 100,000 subscribers. Nice. So we're really pumped about that, because the more people hear the message, the more people can get help. So anybody who wants to check it out, they can go to the calmyourmindmethod.com, sign up for some free training, or read the blog. There's lots of blog posts there, kind of diving deeper into the subjects we talked about here today.
Excellent. And it's interesting you mentioned about, while it may sound cliche and we hear it a lot about helping people, even one person. The past last week, I spent a lot of time. I don't usually go live on my Facebook, my personal page. I'll do it for the podcast page and stuff like that. But I just felt compelled last week, and I finally went on live and just kind of sent a message out. My past, I've dealt with addiction. I've dealt with of all kinds. I've lived through, if you said it couldn't be done, I'm the guy that went and did it. And I got the trophy, and I got the shirt, and I've got everything to go along with what my stupid poor decision was. And so at the same time, where I'm at nowadays, obviously I say I'm no longer an addict, but they always say you're one step away from being an addict again. But I haven't used in years. I haven't drank. I don't smoke. I don't do anything anymore. I've kind of become the person I used to think was a joke. But at the end of the day, what my message was last week was for us to help people. So I did a live, and I meant to go on there for like 10, 15 minutes, and I caught myself literally 45 minutes later, still live, still talking to my friends, still talking to people back home. And I'm from Florida. I grew up in Florida. I've been all over the United States, but I grew up mainly in Florida. And I can't even count now. I've lost count. That's how severe it is, over the amount of friends that I've lost over addictions and overdoses. I've lost the amount of friends that have died from suicide. The amount of friends that have literally just making a poor decision lost their life. And so my message last week was just exactly what you were saying, is if I could help one person by going live and offer them any kind of, call me, email me, message me, whatever it may take, call me or reach out to someone else. And that was my message. And like you said, the thing that where I'm at in life now is using this platform, as well as just being in general. When I go out of my house, when I go to the grocery store, I'm very genuine and I'm very intentional in my relationships. And that means strangers, that means whoever it may be. A matter of, to help somebody is a matter of holding a door, giving a compliment, smiling at somebody. You never know what that person's going through in that moment. So you could have a person whose husband just beat them to death and then sent them to the store to get something to eat, and you're literally engaged with that person opening a door. Just a smile on your face, just a compliment on maybe her outfit or something could be enough to get her out of the abuse she's going through in the moment, the depression she's going through in the moment, and possibly change that person's day. Could be the opposite. It could be somebody, it could be the abuser who's abused the children and the wife, and maybe in that moment you were kind enough that when they go home, they might treat the wife or the kids better. And so my message last week was kind of that, is I'm at a point in my life now where I try to use this platform to help others. I try to, in my own personal life, do whatever I can to help others. And while I don't always do it financially, part of that message was I do find myself sometimes doing it financially. I find still friends of mine that I know are addicts that call me and they're like, hey, can you send me $20? And I know full well they're in addict mode, and people are like, don't enable them. And I say, you know what, if it's on my heart to do it for them, because one day, many, many years ago, I was an addict, and there was one person that sent me $20. And whether I used it to use or whether I actually used it to go do something productive with it, that person to this day is still a friend of mine. And I remember the gesture they did, and it brought me out of that much more of that addiction. Amazing. And even if I didn't get clean on that moment, I got clean later. And I remember and reflected on it. I never forgot that one person was kind to me. And so I do use this platform to help. And so what you said, by everything you're doing, for our audience to be able to hear what you're doing, it is, you hear it, it's cliche. People think it's cliche. To me, it's not. What you're doing is helping people. And I respect and love that, because that's where I'm at, whatever it takes. And it doesn't take money, and it literally takes, and people don't realize it literally just takes action. That's it. The smile takes action. Opening a door takes action. Somebody in the drive-through, you're driving through a drive-through, buy the meal behind you, the car behind you, buy their meal. Exactly. And they don't even need to know who you are. You drive off, you never see each other again, but that may have made their day. Maybe they're broke. Maybe they're suffering through coronavirus stuff going on. So I encourage everybody to help other people. That's what I do on this platform. It's what I do in my personal life. So I respect what you just said, because it hits home with what my whole past week has been. And I've jumped on live several times in the past week and said the same message over again, just to remind people. I had a friend of mine, a neighbor of mine and friend, about 3 months ago, I want to say maybe 4 months ago, took his own life. His son came over to visit him. Nobody could get a hold of the guy. There was some red flags that me and my wife had. This is a guy that would come over to our house all the time. He lived basically across the street. And he was going through a divorce. His wife just decided, I'm done with this. And she just left him. And he was depressed. And he would tell us, I'm depressed, I'm lonely. And there just came a point where I was like, I was seeing the red flags, but I was like, this is a guy who is a fire, he's a fire chief. This guy is very strong. This guy, I would have never thought in a million years would do that. And one day his son comes over and I get a yell. I'm on the back porch watching TV and I get a yell from my wife that they need me over there. And I literally run out the door. I kind of felt something was wrong. He had been acting weird. I jumped the fence, I run over there, and the son's there, and he said, I can't go in. The door's open. And sure enough, I walk in, and he shot himself right in the head, and he was right there in front of me. And while I'd witnessed many horrible things in my life, I guess this was very fresh. This was very new, as opposed to some of the stuff I had witnessed earlier in life that maybe didn't impact me as much, or maybe I didn't have the emotional bond that it mattered that much then. And so it was just horrific. And again, that's why I preach about, and I use this platform to say, if we can reach one person, if we can prevent one suicide like that, just by being intentional, just by being in somebody's life, like you said, in the moment, take every moment, don't be in a hurry to end the conversation if it's the most annoying person in the world and just to walk away and get back into your life. Use that moment to be genuine and intentional, because you never know if you're looking someone in the eye who's going to do exactly what he did. And so I always try to remind people of that. Our life on this planet's short, and I know at 44 years, I feel like I've wasted a lot of my life. But at the same time, I know, just as you just said, to live in the moment right now and use every moment I have until I'm dead, to maybe be an impact to one person, let alone be an impact to maybe several dozen before I die, or my wife, or my son, or maybe his friends when they're over hanging out. Using that time to be genuine and intentional means so much to me these days. And that's what I try to do. And I see that with you. I mean, obviously, there's something to be said about someone who's willing to spend their time, whether it's for, as a business or even just, as something they enjoy doing, but to go and bring your story and your profession to someone else, and what your profession really is helping. And I have the utmost respect for people that do that.
I really appreciate you saying that. And I appreciate you sharing that bit of your life. And, more than anybody, so much of the time when you open up to somebody else, they usually got a story too. Mm-hmm. Oh my God, I didn't know you went through that. I'm going through that. My son is going through that. They can relate somehow. And I hear it all the time. One of the most impactful ways to help somebody is to share your personal story. And, and then when you do that, it's a snowballing effect. Mm-hmm. Then they're more eager to let something off of their chest. Or like you said, if something as simple as opening up the door for somebody, you could have changed that person's day.
Yeah, exactly.
And it's so, and you said that so beautifully, opening up a door, saying your hat is so lovely, or whatever that is,
yep.
That could just, even for that split second, take them out of their head.
Yep.
That could literally make all the difference in the world. Mm-hmm. And it's only a one sentence thing. It's only once. It only takes a second, but it's those little tiny things. And I'm telling you it. And I can obviously see that you've changed, certainly changed people's lives, and that will snowball. That will, because people hold on to that.
Yep.
When somebody genuinely helps them, they hold on to that. So good on you, and I really appreciate you sharing that.
Yeah, for sure. Is there any other information you want to tell us about where our audience can find you? Anything coming up that maybe they can catch you on? I want them to go to your YouTube. I want them to go to your website. I want them to see some of your different. I'd love for them to pick up some of your books. Tell us where we can get those. Let us know all of that.
Yeah, sure. So the main place to go is the Calm Your Mind Method.com. So when they go there, they can sign up for free training. They can listen to the blog. Every month I have a 4-week accelerator program. If they wanted to sign up to that, we're actually starting now, depending on when you publish this is starting this coming Thursday. So I believe
I'm hoping to get this out today or tomorrow.
Oh, great. So yeah.
So immediate.
Yeah. This coming Thursday, we have a 4-week program, which is basically an hour a week of live teaching. And then I keep in touch with the people every couple of days and give them practical tips and emails and that kind of thing. But It's actually live training that they see me. And so, yeah, I can't wait to do that. But the blog, the YouTube channel, the articles, the free training, and of course, the accelerated training, everything is at thecalmyourmindmethod.com.
Excellent. Excellent. Where do I like to ask I like to hit the guest with some kind of odd question always. And so with you, your story is great. And so with you, I think the question that's on my mind is, where do you see yourself and what is the vision of where you want to be in, say, 10 years?
10 years from now, I definitely want to be doing what I'm doing now, however that looks, in today's world. God only knows how that's going to look. But definitely along the same path, doing what I'm doing now with a family. I don't have any kids now, but with a family, and just reaching more people. That was always one of my biggest goals. And that's why, I'm very proud of my YouTube channel. We're almost at 100,000 subscribers, and anybody can go watch any of those videos for free. And, we're helping a lot of people there. So just getting the message out. And I hope one day we'll be able to get back on the road after, the world calms down, because I love meeting people one-on-one, like physically after the presentations.
This pandemic's killing me. It's killing me not to be able to just go have those meetings with people. It's just killing me.
Yep. So it's same with me. So hopefully the world gets back to normal sooner than later, and everybody's safe and as healthy as we can be. Yep. But just reaching the more people I can through podcasts like this, and really appreciate the opportunity, Dean, by the way. And through the books, through the YouTube channel, through the free training, whatever it may be. And
for sure,
just doing what I'm doing.
Well, hopefully things get better with the pandemic, and then things lift up, and then obviously I've stated before last week, and like I said on a few of these lives, that with this pandemic, we really got to take even more time to kind of be genuine in our relationships with people we do interact with at this time, because this has caused a lot more depression. It has caused a higher suicide rate. So we really do got to be genuine. So yeah, man, hopefully in 10 years from now, man, your name's in lights, you're doing this, and you're leading the industry of what you already do, and that you get to continue to do something that you enjoy doing. I think it's amazing. I think you got a great story, and I'm gonna definitely be working on getting this up probably today. At latest, it'll be tomorrow. I'm gonna ask you real quick while we're here live, just to make sure to send me all the links, because I'm gonna post those up as well. For sure. But I have an opportunity to get you on the show in the future again, and maybe we can touch base, kind of get some updates on where we're at, maybe after this whole pandemic, and kind of see where things are at. So in the future, I'd love to have you on again, man.
Yeah, consider it done. I really appreciate this opportunity, Dean, and we'll certainly be talking.
For sure. Will you go ahead and send me all the links to everything I need in an email, and I will, as soon as I get all this done, I'll get it edited up. I'll send you a link, and you'll see it live.
Sounds great.
Perfect, man. Have a great day.
You too, man. We'll talk to you soon.
Yep.